Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Holy shit, baby! Coming off of another one of my famous, ill-timed, and completely undeserved breaks. Let's get back into it, baby. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to being back. I had to kind of, renegotiate some things in my mind, and then I did have an actual vacation, so I had some stuff going on. But we are all good and we are here, and I have plenty of stuff to do. So, just a little update here for myself mostly, and I guess to whom it may concern. But let's go over what we've been doing and what we've got slated on the docket for this coming weeks and months. Gym changes. I was on 7 days at the gym. So 7 days strength training for probably like 3 years. Maybe 2.5. It was working great, but I feel like we kind of hit a plateau and there's not really any more forward movement from there. So, I'm going to try something else. All my, some strength things were going up, and I just seemed to be very slowly gaining weight, and I was on a pretty heavy bulk before the vacation. So, I just think that I'm doing too much. And, I punched it in a few calculators, and I never factored in the fact that I'm working out 7 days as energy expenditure. So I just factored in how much I weigh, how tall I am, and then got my caloric requirements from there. And obviously, big mistake. So I was going to have to take in almost 5,000 calories to do a heavy bulk, not necessarily dirty, but heavy. And, 2+ pounds per week. And that's just too much. It's such a struggle to try and eat that much shit all the time. So I'm trying to center up here. So I'm kind of backing off that. I immediately took off 1 day, and then I figured I'd drop it down to 5, and we'll see how that's going. But then I got invited to take part in a marathon in October. So I'm going to start training for that. And so then I definitely don't need to be training strength that much. But that's okay. So now, new plan is 4 days a week strength training, pretty basic split, legs, chest, back, arms. And then on that arm day, I'll also do a running session of speed training. So not necessarily pure speed or sprints or anything, but I'll take a running milestone that I'm used to running, call it a mile, call it 3 miles, call it 5, whatever. It'll progress over time, and then I'll just try and shorten the time that it takes me to run that. And then the day following that, I'll do a distance milestone. So I'll just try and set a PR, or at least secure a PR. It's kind of my system for doing things. I like to set a PR, and then I don't consider it a personal record or personal best. If you say PB, you kind of suck. Just saying, peanut butter. But set it and then secure it, and then it's really yours. It's my philosophy anyways. So that's the new system. And then instead of, I was parked at, I think, 4,200 calories. Maybe I did sit at 45. But I dropped it down to 35, which should still, for my weight, I think I've been coasting at about 205 for a while now. I think that should be good enough to keep the bulk moving. So that's pretty much it for the physical stuff. Now for the improvement docket here. I got a ton of stuff to clean up, got a ton of stuff to get back into, a ton of bad habits to break, but that's okay. That's where all the fun's at. So reading has been fine for about a year. I tried to bump up to 2 books, one fiction, one non, and I didn't really have the time, and by that I mean I didn't organize my time well enough to where I could fit both in. And so I just stuck with one and just whatever I was reading. I was reading Game of Thrones for a while, and then I took a break from that. And then I read the first 2 or 3 books of Sherlock Holmes. We got this big Sherlock Holmes collection. Do I have it back here? No. But I read a couple of those, which was great. And now I'm reading this book on basically Chinese spyware and whatever, the camps they got and shit over there. So, which is interesting. So, yeah, still taking a little break from Game of Thrones. I watched this video where this guy was talking about writing and talking about like the process and what do's and don'ts and stuff. And he basically said that like you got to be careful with how you structure the story. Otherwise, you're going to end up like George R.R. Martin, and he can't finish the series because he's created this behemoth of a thing that's gone completely out of his control, and now he has no idea how to wrap up the loose ends, which is just one man's opinion. But it did make sense because that fucker has a lot going on in it. And I'm only like halfway through book 3. So, we'll see how that goes. But it just kind of put me off of it for a little bit, but it's still great, so I would like to finish it. So, point being is I do want to bump back up to 2 books and really make that happen, because then I can just move so much faster through reading. And I've got all these fucking books on the shelf, and we just got a whole bunch more that I would like to get through. So that's got to happen. I just got to bump that up, because with the reading that I do, I don't set aside like an hour every day to read. So you punch out like 10, 20 pages a time, and then every once in a while you get carried away and you read for like 3 hours. But it's just not fast enough. And I want to be intaking information from literature much faster. So that's up next. Study work time slots. Yeah, so it's just become obvious that I need way more structure in my life. Like I get to, what I used to do is get to my days off and then I'd like sit down and I'd plan my day in the beginning of the day and just get through a to-do list. But now it's like, okay, one, I don't like waiting until my days off. One, they've been inconsistent. They seem to be more consistent now, but whatever. I don't like waiting until 2 specific days to do stuff. You know what I mean? Especially when I only work 6, 7 hours, 8 at the most during the week. Like I could still fit so much more shit in there, even in the evenings or in, before work, whatever. So what I'm going to start doing is just really rationing out, maybe when my schedule gets posted or whatever, I can make my own schedule, because there's just too many things that I want to get to and not enough time to do it if I'm just doing what I feel like I'm doing. You know what I mean? So this will kind of be more clear as I get through the rest of the stuff that I have to do, but have specific time slots. So like this day I'll work for 2 to 3 hours on YouTube, and then 2 to 3 hours on, or an hour on learning this topic and this topic and this topic, as in full notes in front of me, learning something, right? Podcast, reading, whatever, study notes or anything, you know what I mean? Like finding whatever topic I'm interested in at the time or that I find useful and really digging deep in it for a specific amount of time. And then I work for that time, and then when I'm done, I'm done. You know what I mean? And it just seems like it has to happen. I don't think that there's another way, because, when I sit down in the morning and I write out everything that I want to get done, it gets a little stressful. But if I have a plan for, spend an hour on this and then take a 15-minute break or whatever, and then the next thing and then the next thing, and then when you're done and you're good to go. And I think that would also help, because, I could basically on my days off get up at 6 or 7, right? And then work for a few hours, go to the gym, and then work for a few more hours, and hopefully be done by like 5, 6 o'clock, and then the rest of that day is mine. You know what I mean? Instead of before, where it was like you wake up and then go to the gym, and then it's like pick and choose what I want to do or what makes the most sense to do in order, and you end up spending too much time on this thing and not enough time on this thing, and it's just hectic. It doesn't make any sense. It's not organized. It's just chaos. And like I said, I got too much shit that I gotta keep up with for it not to happen. Oh yeah, well, I'll mention that at the end. So that'll be the next thing, is figuring out time slots that I haven't done yet, but now that my days off are more consistent, and it seems like my days on are also more consistent, I'm going to try and iron that out in the next couple days, which I'm excited for, dude. I'm excited for, because it means that I can fit a lot more in, and instead of like doing what I always do, which is finding something I like and then boring full steam ahead into it and then getting bored or getting burnt out or whatever and then falling off of it, I can just consistently chip away at this thing and increase my knowledge there. I think that's really going to help. Then I have credit repair. So starting now, I was pretty good about credit, but then after the move, and then I made no money working fucking retail. So I got to really repair my credit. It's not in the shitter, but it definitely needs to be improved. And especially with all the stuff that I can do with credit. It's become a lot more obvious in the past few months. So that needs to be fixed. And I don't have a ton of debt, but pay off whatever debt that I have, and then really stay consistent with the 2 cards that I have, which have pretty shit bonuses, but then I'm going to get this Capital One card. Given my credit score, or my credit history, I probably can't get approved for anything real right now. So I'll just there's a Capital One card where you just submit a deposit, and then that acts as your credit balance, which works perfectly because they're not going to deny you because you're supplying the credit. And then I can just use that to, throw $600 down and then use that to increase my overall credit. And then that lowers my credit utilization and makes it easier to coast off of that instead of trying to keep $5 in each account. So it'll let me build credit a lot faster that way. And then I'll have 3 cards instead of 2, which also moves a lot faster. So that works good. And then hopefully we'll just keep going from there. Ideally, I would like to just keep bumping my credit up over time and then get another credit card. I'll probably tap out at like 5, depending on what I can get, but I'd like to really start maxing out not only where my credit is, but the cards that I have and how I can use them so I can really get this cash back. My partner's been doing this cash back game for a while, and it's working pretty fucking stellar. She's got some other stuff going on, but the cashback itself works really well. And the one I have a Citibank Best Buy card, which I kind of accidentally got when I was trying to buy a TV a long time ago, and it's just stuck around. But the problem is that all the rewards that I get, it has good rewards, but they all have to be spent at Best Buy, which is like, I don't really shop at Best Buy. The only thing I would get there is like a TV or who gives a fuck. So it doesn't really make sense, but it's still a card and I already have it, so I might as well use it for what I'm going to use things for, which is just improving my credit score and keeping my utilization low and whatnot. So that is a big must. So I'm going to be A on that one. And I was good about it before. It's just with all the turbulence, it kind of got tossed to the side. It's like these fuckers can wait for their money. You know what I mean? I need the money right now. So yeah, that's pretty front and center. With the study and work time, something that I need to include now is language learning, right? Definitely starting with Spanish. In this way, I can just chip away at it, say an hour at a time, and do that every day and get practice and stuff like that. Like I already have access to language learning models and stuff like that, so I just need to start using them actually. I've had access to this stuff for years and I used it before, but then I kind of fell off, and what they say, if you don't use it, you lose it, right? So I got to start porting that back in, and I'm excited for that. I'm excited. And then I would like to learn as many languages as I can, and I think I'd be wasting my time if I especially didn't start now, given, brain plasticity is about to start falling off. Not sharply, but it does. You know what I mean? I'm 24 now, and brain plasticity starts dropping at 25-ish. So, I want to use that to my advantage as much as I can. So start that now, and then we'll start in Spanish. And when I feel like I have a pretty good grasp at it, like I can at least speak conversationally, then I can start adding another one. And then, we'll see where that goes. Either I'll learn adjacent languages like Italian or something like that, or I can move to something completely out of left field. French is something that I've been interested in. And then, I don't know, something else that's useful, because I don't really feel like learning languages just to learn them. I would like to learn languages that, I plan on visiting the places, or things that, a lot of people around me speak. So Russian, German, whatever. That's why French is so useful, because then I can also kind of piggyback off that. And Creole is right there. We got a lot of Haitians around here too, so I can speak that, or at least communicate somewhat effectively. French is going to be hard to learn, but my hope is that after 2-3 languages, I can kind of button down where I need to focus. So then I can just almost speed run language learning. And then, like I said, I want to learn as many as possible. So just study language forever, and then whatever I end up with, I end up with. But that's going to be fun, I think. You know what I mean? And that just opens the doors for so many different experiences. I don't have to be reliant on anybody or Google or whatever to translate anything. I can just read, write, speak, and then wherever I am, I can exist just fine. I think that would be a big help, which is also why Spanish is first. One, my partner speaks Spanish, so that's a must. Plus, So if we ever go, to her home, that's going to be a big thing that I need to learn. And then plus, a lot of the world speaks Spanish as well. So that's going to be a pretty big deal and very helpful, I think, especially in business, I would imagine. And I could probably do videos bilingually or multilingually, right? So that'll be included in the study time. That'll be included in the work time where I have an allotted slot where this amount of time every day or every couple of days or whatever I spend watching stuff in Spanish or reading stuff in Spanish or practicing Spanish or whatever, writing in Spanish. Who cares? I can figure that out as I go. But yeah, that's going to be pretty sweet. So I've had this issue forever where trying to figure out, like, do I or do I not play Xbox ever? Because it is, to really get in the flow, you got to play for a while, and time sneaks up on you. You end up playing fucking 5 hours on there, and that's just not advantageous at all, especially if it's taking priority over work. So, I don't want to get rid of it, because I've done that in the past where I spent like a year and a half or more just not playing because it just felt like such a big waste of time. But given that, that's how I communicate with a lot of my friends, and it's a good way to de-stress, Low stakes play is very important for, mental health and, cognition in general. So, I want to keep that in there, but I got to figure out a schedule for when that's doable. And that, with the study and work time, my thought is that after that, I can kind of do whatever, but at the same time, like, I'd like to keep it within reason, But we'll see how that goes, but I'd like to schedule amounts of time, or at least schedule in a way that makes sense, so that I can still play but not feel like I'm shirking my duties, right? So that's up next as well. As for drinking and smoking, so there's really no benefit to doing either in terms of health, right? Now, for fun, yeah, sure, of course. And plus, I love making drinks. I love learning about alcohol. I love learning how to make it and how to, design a drink from scratch and what flavors go with what and everything. It's always been very interesting to me. But obviously, it just takes a huge toll on your body. And there's a pretty small number of drinks that's like okay in a week, right? And that's like, the top end of okay, as in the bottom end of bad, right? So I'd like to have some sort of schedule or idea. I don't like the Xbox thing. I don't want to just cold turkey and then binge, Which is kind of what I typically do, is when I take my breaks, then I, drink whatever I want, within reason, and sometimes without reason. But I'd like to create some kind of, like, to me, there's no point in, like, having a beer after work. I don't see the point. It's like there are better ways to spend my time and impact my sleep negatively. If I'm going to drink, I'm going to do it. Go big or go home, right? So in that case, having a certain number of days a month or something like that I'm okay with drinking. I don't know. I haven't really given it much thought, but I'd like to figure that out. So that way I don't have to be upset with myself just because I had a couple drinks, or, be nervous to have a drink or anything. I'd like to have a plan, so then at least I have some sort of guideline, and I can always venture slightly outside those guidelines, but at least they're there so I know what I'm doing, right? It's just like the calories thing. Even if I don't stick directly to it, at least I have some basis of understanding of where I'm at, right? I need to fix the cleaning schedule. So this fucker's running a little long, but that's okay. A lot to say, a lot coming up. But I don't know. I've had this issue where, and I assume it's just becoming an adult, or maybe I guess if people are raised this way, I don't know. But I've had this issue where, like, cleaning is so negotiable in my mind. You know what I mean? Like, the basic cleaning, like keeping the dishes done, keeping the house, looking fine is pretty good. Those can still be ironed out a lot more, but, like, regular cleanings of the bathroom, whereas now it's like, hate to say it, but it's when it gets dirty, then I'll clean it. You know what I mean? Whereas I'd like to just keep everything constantly clean, to the highest degree. So, making sure that there's not fingerprints on anything. There, everything's put where it's supposed to go. It's just increasing this habit so that everything is exactly where it's supposed to be, and I never have to worry about clutter, which means that on my day off, I don't have to spend a whole day cleaning the entire house. Just every day I chip away at it a little bit so everything's constantly clean. So that needs to be greatly improved. There's some things that I'm really good at, and then there's a lot of things that I'm really bad at. So, and it's just, I don't like, oh, I'm going to have people over. Let me spend 4 hours trying to make sure everything looks good and shoving everything in a closet or whatever. It's, we're adults here, you know what I mean? So it doesn't make any sense for this to be the case. So that needs to be fixed as well. I don't really have a plan for how I'm going to go about that, but again, I could probably schedule it so that, this day I do this and this day I do this, but we'll figure that out. This is obviously the contemplative stage of doing things. But, we'll get there. We'll get there. Something that I didn't write down that I do want to include is I got all these damn notebooks and don't really have anything to fill it. And I was learning about commonplace books, and that's something that I would like to do either for just milestone knowledge that I accumulate. So when I go through some sort of trouble and I come out the other end with wisdom that comes with it, recording that so that I can just look back over that and say, okay, problem, here's the solution. Or what I've understood as an actual commonplace book is just a big collection of some specific knowledge. So whatever I'm studying that I continuously study, like exercise science or neurobiology and neurochemistry, stuff like that I'm always paying attention to, keeping a book where I just write down the big things that I need to remember, and then I can always leaf back through there and keep up to tabs there. So instead of learning things and then forgetting a quarter of it and then relearning it, I can just keep it fresh. But I'd like to start doing that. And then I haven't really had an active journal practice, but there was a while, like a good stretch of time, where I was meditating and I would always journal after that. And I had completely forgotten that I had done this, but I had this notebook over here and I was like, the bookmark is in the middle of the book. Let me see what's going on here. And I thought, sometimes when I write things that I don't really want people to see, I'll hide it in the middle of books or hide it in, some random page, and so that I can find it later. But turns out I had filled half this notebook with what I was worried about and what I was thinking and what was going on, and I just spent some time and I read back through it, and it was pretty great. It was really interesting to see not only the things that I'd conquered, but the things that I'm still dealing with, the things that I was worried about then and I'm worried about now. And it just gives a really accurate representation of where my mind has been and where my mind has gone, right? And so it seems incredibly useful, if not in the practice itself, but of the revision of the practice, right? Going back over and looking through the past and being like, okay, because even if I can kind of sit back and remember details of my life, it's not quite the same as reading my own words about how I felt going through this time. And I can really kind of relive that and be like, oh shit, yeah, that's what it was like. That's what was going on, right? And especially with times and dates, I can really date stamp a lot of big things in my life. So I want to start doing that as well. So trying to figure out commonplace, trying to figure out journaling, and then I started a quotes book as well. So any relevant quotes that I have are gonna get jotted down in there, and then I can kind of hang on to them. And then I also have a bit book. So just anything that I think is funny, either conversationally or even on like a stand-up basis. I don't know that I'd ever do stand-up, maybe just as practice for public speaking and whatnot. But yeah, so I'd like to really iron out those things and keep them active so that I'm not just starting it and leaving it, starting it, leaving it, starting it, leaving it. I want to, that's what a lot of this is just really modifying my behavior to fit the person that I want to be and the places that I want to go. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. I like to drop my caffeine consumption as well. I've been taking these Vivarin tablets for a while, which is obviously the best way to consume caffeine. It's instant, it's exact milligrams, you know what you're taking, and there's no jitters, there's no side effects or anything, but it's also easy to up the dosage, which I don't want to keep doing, which I accidentally did several times. And so now I feel like my threshold is about 300 to 400 milligrams, which is not great. So I want to drop that down so that like 100 gets me going, and then I can take a halfie and I'm good to go. And then I can only use it for the gym and then like really intense bouts of work. But yeah, that's a work in progress. Also, I guess I did start home brewing. So I started with some pretty basic prison wine, or Pruno as they call it, and now I've made some real batches of stuff, and then I've also made a real batch of mead. You know, I found this cool wine shop, and guy gave me a bunch of free stuff, and real yeast nutrient, you know, all this kind of stuff. I have a real setup back here with airlocks and everything, so I'm pretty excited about that. It's like an infinite supply of alcohol pretty much, which doesn't really gel well with limiting drinking, but you know, we'll get there. If I gotta store it, I gotta store it. I don't give a shit. But that's it. That's all I got, ladies and gentlemen, and future me. So thank you for watching. I'll keep everybody, including myself, updated on how these things are going. But I'm excited for the future. You know, I'm excited for getting back to being excited about the future and seeing the progress being made. That's like the big thing about constantly working hard, is that you can see the fruits of your labor every day, and that gets you excited for what comes next and really convinces you that things that you don't really believe are possible actually are. You know, that you can do things. You just gotta, you know, figure out how to do it, make a plan, and then stick to it. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to what is coming soon. So with that, thank you very much, and I will see you on the next one. Nick out.